In episode 5, Grief Karga is on Navarro. He's doing his job as, for all intents and purposes, it's a normal day until pirates show up. And it's Gorian Shard. He's back for revenge after what happened to his henchmen. After doing some digging, he found out that Navarro isn't under the protection of the New Republic. It's actually an independent state, which means they don't have any protection. It's pretty damn easy pickings for Shard. So he starts attacking, blowing Navarro up and eventually driving Grief and his people into the caves. But before they left, Grief recorded a message asking the New Republic for help. The message arrives to a Captain Teva of the New Republic, and it's quite simple. Grief Karga is asking for help, backup, anything. Grief really hammers home the fact that this situation is dire. He's scared that Navarro will fall. Teva tells another New Republic fighter that he's going to forward this message to Coruscant, and hopefully he's allowed to intercede. But that other New Republic officer says Coruscant hasn't returned a dispatch in weeks. You'll never get an answer in time. They're swamped. So Teva decides to go have a one-on-one with them. He's not going to wait around and let Grief and his people die off. He flies to Coruscant and goes and talks to a Colonel Tuttle. He shows him the message that he got from Grief. But Tuttle has never even heard of Navarro, and he certainly doesn't know who Teva is. All of this sounds like small potatoes. While the two are talking, in walks Aaliyah Kane. Tuttle asks her, "Hey, you spent some time on the Outer Rim, right? Did you ever hear of a Navarro?" And Kane says, "Yeah, actually, I have. They've yet to sign the charter. They're not a member planet, and that is an issue." Tuttle explains to Teva that they have a backlog of requests from member worlds that have priority over those that don't. While they don't want to leave Navarro defenseless, there, once again, is a priority. Teva tells him, "I don't think this is an isolated episode. Navarro has reported accounts of stormtroopers in the streets, TIE fighters flying above. The citizens talk about Moff Gideon occupying the town, and now pirates are attempting the same thing? All of this could be connected." But Tuttle says, "Yeah, I think that's a bit of a leap." And Teva shoots back, "Really? Because I'm hearing Moff Gideon never made it to trial." Tuttle tries to get the conversation back on track and asks Teva, "What do you need?" And he says, "I need backup. If we're dealing with pirates on Navarro." Kane jumps in and says, "Well, maybe the leaders of Navarro have to understand why becoming a Republic signatory is valuable. From experience, it often takes a new perspective for some to see the light." And Teva turns to her and says, "You and your sort didn't see the light. You were captured." He can tell this because of a pin on her lapel. And she says, "No, I wasn't captured. I was liberated." Tuttle once again has to get the conversation back on track and tells Teva, "Thanks for coming, but we'll try to see what we can do. Sorry, we can't do more." And Teva's not willing to sit back and let Grief and his people just die. He knows one person that could help, and that's the Mandalorian. He's able to track him down using the droid that the Mandalorian bought off of Peli. He shows up very respectful because he knows the Mandalorians like their privacy, but he explains to the Mandalorian what is going on in Navarro and what Grief is up against. Din Djarin asks Teva, "What's in it for you?" And he says the New Republic has to know that the Empire is growing again. I don't know if this has something to do with it, but something just doesn't smell right. But what I do know is that Grief's your friend, and I would think that you wouldn't want to let him die. And he's right. Din Djarin doesn't want to just let him die, but he also has a code to abide by. So he talks to all the Mandalorians, making his pitch for why they should go to Navarro and help out a guy that used to hunt them down. To his surprise, everybody seems to be on board with it. And they're going to do so because that's what Mandalorians do. They help people out. So Bo-Katan, Din Djarin, and a group of other Mandalorians get together and plan a mission to save Navarro. Gorian Shard and his troops outnumber the Mandalorians by quite a bit. So what they're going to do is they're going to use Din and his ship as a decoy, attacking the main ship and drawing a bunch of Shard's fighters out of it. Bo is then going to drop a bunch of Mandalorians in the streets to clean that up. The mission goes into effect with Din attacking the ship first, and just like it's planned, a bunch of Gorian Shard's men fly out trying to catch him. It allows all the Mandalorians to pop down in the streets and start cleaning the place up. It is dangerous. It's quite the battle, but in the end, the outnumbered Mandalorians end up winning it. The rest of Gorian Shard's men on the streets end up getting cornered, and they have no option but to surrender. Up in the air, though, the men that are on Shard's ship realize that they should probably retreat, and they tell Shard as much. But he's not about to do that. He's going to go down swinging. And he says, "Fire on the civilians." When Bo and Din see what he's doing, they know that they have to stop him before he actually is able to fire on these people. And they do that. They fire on his ship, and it crashes into the side of a mountain and explodes. Greef and the rest of the people of Navarro are humbly thankful to all the Mandalorians. One of the ways Din convinced the rest of the Mandalorians to jump on board with this is the fact that Greef had promised the Mandalorian a piece of land on Navarro. So part of Din's pitch was, hey, we don't have to hide in the caves anymore. We can actually form a home on Navarro. I know this guy will give me land if we come through. And Greef does. He welcomes all of the Mandalorians onto their planet and says, you guys now have a home. They no longer have to hide in the sewers. They get real prime real estate. As Greef is finishing up his speech, one of the Mandalorians comes to Bo and says, the Armorer wants to talk to you. And the Armorer wants to do so in the sewers where she used to make the Beskar armor. She starts talking about Mandalore and then stops, looking at Bo and says, remove your helmet. Bo is pretty hesitant to do this because she knows it's against the rules, but the Armorer insists, remove your helmet. The Armorer tells Bo that their people have strayed from the way, and it's not enough for a few to walk it. We must walk it together. She then says, I was taught that the mythosaur existed only in legends. And yet, you saw it. It is a sign that the next age is upon us. Mandalore must all come together. You have walked both worlds. You are the one who can unite us. The two then walk out of the sewers back to the rest of the Mandalorians, and Bo still has her helmet off. And when the Mandalorians see this, they're pretty confused about what's going on. The Armorer announces that Bo-Katan is going to be an ambassador for them, to go around the galaxy and look for other Mandalorians. She's going to bring other Mandalorians in exile to them, and they're going to accept them. That way they can be united once again. She looks around to her group and says Bo-Katan walks both worlds, and she can bring all tribes together. Because it's time that we retake Mandalore. Now, out in the galaxy, not too far away, Captain Teva is flying in his X-Wing, and he finds a shuttle that seems to be abandoned. He radios back to base and says, hey, has there been news about a missing craft in the region? And the voice on the other end says, yeah, actually there is. The details, though, are classified. Teva decides to launch a probe and see what's going on inside of it. And they realize that it's a New Republic prison transport, so Teva says, check the departure times. And the flight times match the ship transporting Moff Gideon, although Moff's body is nowhere to be found. Teva's hunch was right. They start scanning around to see if they can find any hints of what happened, because it's clear that an extraction went down. Teva notices that there's something embedded in the cabin wall, and when he gets closer, he sees that it's a fragment of Beskar alloy. The voice on the other end asks, are you saying that Moff Gideon was taken by Mandalorians? And while Teva doesn't say that, it certainly looks to be the case. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.